It's Ballblazer on the Atari 7800. Now, this Atari system came out in the mid-80s and didn't have a lot of bright spots in its game library, in my opinion. But this is one of them. It's a futuristic sports game that's unlike anything else. It's put together by LucasArts, best known for their Star Wars games and their adventure games, but here they are doing something very different, and their earlier library was pretty different from their later output. This is one of the better versions of the game. It also came out for the 800, which actually might be on par with this. The Commodore one, which I'll also show you, which isn't nearly as good. Now, just as a aside, the music you're hearing is randomly generated, and I believe it's a fractal composition. They experimented a lot with fractals. For example, they put out a whole game called Rescue on Fractalis, and a bunch of other games that use this engine, where they squeezed very detailed scenery out of an 8-bit processor. I believe some of the people who worked on this worked on Star Trek 2, the Genesis planet effect. But getting back to Ballblazer, you've got here a really competitive, cool 2-player split-screen game. Let's pop it in and check it out. So, Ballblazer takes place on a grid in 3D. Because of the limitations of the engine, you can only face 90 degrees at a time. So either you're facing the ball, or if you have the ball, you're facing the goal. And then hitting the button activates this force field that can push the ball. You can steal it from your opponent. You can push it into the goal using this force field. And it pushes back everything in the area, so you might hit it and it'll push the ball and the other player out of the way. And that's how you steal the ball, take control of it, shoot it at the goal. It's pretty ingenious, in my opinion. And there's a few ways to score. You can kind of drag it into the goal point blank and you get 1 point. You can shoot it from a few feet away and you get 2. Or you can do an over-the-horizon shot where you don't see the goal, but you kind of know where it is, and that gets you 3 points. One interesting thing they did was that the goalposts, they start out very far apart, and as the timer counts down, they get closer and closer together. So actually later in the game, it's harder to score, and the goalposts move. You've heard the phrase "moving goalposts." These are some literal ones. So score early. You can also dribble the ball if you hold down the force field button, and that allows you to move faster with it. When you've got the ball, you move a little bit slower. And I believe the music in-game is generated also on the fly. It's a different kind of drum beat when you've got the ball versus when the players are both kind of going for it. And it kind of builds up the tension really nicely. I really dig that. It's really cool.
I only won by 1 point.
So, it's either the first player who scores 10 points wins, or the player with the most points when the timer ticks down. And if it's a draw, it goes into a sudden death. One kind of neat thing is that you could score, let's say, 9 points. One player can score 9 points. And then if the other player scores, say 5, he starts stealing points from the other player. See, the one player's score grows from the left to the right, the other player's score grows from the right to the left. And they actually use that. And I think that's kind of cool. So you get to a certain point in the game and you don't not only score points, but you're taking them away from the other player.
No!
This game is a really fun party game. If you got to have a few friends over, it gets really competitive. It can be a bit tricky to explain to people. It's pretty intricate and pretty strange and different. But once your friends get into it, I find that people kind of tend to get hooked, and it's no wonder. It's a tense, fun game. And here's the Commodore 64 version, and I usually love the Commodore 64, but this game, the frame rate sucks, the sound design's not nearly as good. The frame rate can't keep up with the action. It actually makes for something of a random-ish game. It's not very playable. Now, I haven't played the 800 version, Atari 800, which I think might be the original, but I imagine it's better than this. So, if you get Ballblazer, try the 7800 one, and I think it also came out in Europe for the Amiga and ST. I think maybe it's Master Blazer, which brings us to the manual, where you are actually trying for the title of Master Blazer. That's something that I think Snoop Dogg would be pretty jealous of. The 7800 manual shown here is pretty dull. And let's look at the computer version manual, where you have all these lush, full-color drawings. You've got the blueprints of your rotofoil, that's the craft you pilot, fake interviews with, alien champions. Here's how the force field that your craft has work, talking about the push field and the pull field. That's how you push and pull the ball. It just kind of oozes personality in a way that the Atari version, the 7800 version, kind of doesn't do. But that's typical, Atari was pretty cheap during those times. And that's a little bit too bad. So there you go, that's Ballblazer, a sports action game that's heavy on Twitch, and one that I highly recommend if you have friends who might be interested in playing this kind of game. Thanks for watching, and keep on blazing. Aw yeah.